Good evening. I am Sue DeSalle, the Voter Services Co-Chair for the League of Women Voters of Lake Minnetonka, Plymouth area. We are co-hosting this candidate forum tonight with Brooklyn Park, Osseo, and Maple Grove League. On behalf of our two leagues, I would like to welcome you to the candidate forum for Senate District 37, House District 37A, and House 37B. We thank the candidates and the audience for attending tonight and our online audience for viewing. The League of Women Voters is a 106-year-old organization, a volunteer organization, which encourages the informed and active participation of citizens in government, works to increase understanding of major public policy issues, and influences public policy through education and advocacy. The League of Women Voters does not support or oppose any political party or any candidate. The League has a long-standing history in our community of providing unbiased candidate and issue information that is widely used by Minnesota voters, regardless of their political beliefs. The forum is a public service providing you with the opportunity to hear candidates discuss face-to-face the issues that are important to you. The views expressed here tonight are those of the candidates and not those of the League of Women Voters. Sponsorship of this forum is not an endorsement for any candidate. There's never enough time to cover all of the issues. If you feel that your question was not addressed, please contact the candidate or the candidates directly after this forum. And now I would like to introduce our moderator for this evening, Patty Robles, a certified moderator from the League of Women Voters. And Patty.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Sue, and thank you all for being here. My name is Patty Robles, and I will be your moderator for this evening. I want to take a moment to walk you through how tonight's forum will work. We have candidates here tonight running for 3 races: Senate District 37, House District 37A, and House District 37B. All candidates were invited to participate. One candidate who accepted is unable to attend tonight due to illness. We will begin with opening statements. Each candidate will have 2 minutes for their opening statement. Opening statements will be given in alphabetical order by last name within each race, beginning with the Senate District 37, then House District 37A, and then House District 37B. I will be reading the candidate who was unable to attend's opening statement as allowed by League of Women Voters Minnesota rules. During the question portion of the forum, candidates will respond to written questions submitted by the public, both those submitted in advance by email and those submitted here tonight. All candidates will be asked the same questions. Each candidate will have 1 minute to respond to each question. The order of answering will rotate throughout the forum. We will end with closing statements, and each candidate will have 1 minute. Closing statements will be given in a different order than opening statements. Please note our timekeepers tonight, Eleanor and Tio. They will display a 30-second warning for opening statements as your time is running low and a stop sign when your time is up. For questions, you'll see a 15-second warning and then the stop sign. Candidates, please be respectful of the time limit so that all candidates have equal opportunity to speak. Let's begin, and we'll begin with opening statements. The first is going to be candidate Channon, and I will read his opening statement. Dear neighbors and members of the League of Women Voters, I am deeply sorry that I cannot be with you in person this evening for the candidate forum. I was very much looking forward to this event, and unfortunately, an unexpected medical battle with a combination of pneumonia, pseudomonas, and laryngitis has left me physically incapacitated and completely without my voice. Most importantly, I do not want to put anyone's health at risk. Participating in these forums is an incredible honor, and I am profoundly disappointed that these circumstances have prevented me from sharing the stage with my fellow candidates and speaking directly with you tonight. I want to extend my heartfelt gratitude to the League of Women Voters for organizing this event and to everyone in the audience for taking time to participate. Engaging in the democratic process and staying politically informed is one of our most critical civic duties, and your presence tonight underscores the strength of our community. For anyone who is interested in learning more about our campaign's core priorities, values, and platform, such as my proposition to finally codify the Equal Rights Amendment, my position on AI data centers and mining, reproductive rights, and steps towards universal health care, among other issues, I warmly welcome you to visit my campaign website at CHANENFORMN.com, ChannonForMinnesota.com. I can be reached via the contact form on the website, where I will personally respond to all inquiries. Thank you all for your understanding, and please enjoy the rest of the forum. All right, so now we're going to move on to our candidates that are here tonight. And our first candidate for opening statements will be candidate Janigo, and then following that, candidate McKee. Candidate Janigo?
I'm Christy Janigo, and I'm asking for your vote for State Senate. I'm not a stranger to public service. I took my oath of enlistment at 17 years old as a North Dakota Army National Guardsman. For the past 4 years, I've been serving Maple Grove residents as a city council member, and this year I'm your deputy mayor. I'm a well-known council member because I have a years-long pattern of showing up and listening to residents, so they feel heard and their input is included in the process of governance. For my day job as a civil servant for the county, I've become well acquainted with the cities of Greenfield, Independence, Maple Plain, Loretto, Medina, and Corcoran. While I live in Maple Grove, I make a point to patronize businesses in the rest of the district and have attended community events and meetings in all the cities in the district. I was raised in small towns in North Dakota, and I understand the struggles local governments face when tax bases are limited. I also know that in more rural areas, community is involved in raising every child, and when something goes wrong for a family, community steps in. I'm tired of the smaller cities in the district being passed over for funding resources because they're part of a large metro county. I plan to be a strong voice for every city in the district at the capital. I'm proud to say that in Maple Grove, although we're the 11th largest city in Minnesota, we have that sense of community here too, through our volunteer organizations like the Maple Grove Lions, the Rotary Club, and the Osseo Maple Grove American Legion. I'm a member of both the Rotary and the Legion. While I've never had a state legislature position, I have a track record of my own. For several years, I represented 2 statewide veterans nonprofits at the Capitol in St. Paul as their legislative chair. I crafted legislative platforms and bill language approved by the organization's membership, approached lawmakers for authorship covering both sides of the aisle, answered legislative researchers' questions about intent, and testified in countless committee hearings. I'm ready to do this job. I'm Christy Janigo, and I'm asking for your vote.
Thank you. Candidate McKee.
Good evening. Thank you to the League of Women Voters and everyone who came out tonight to tonight's forum. My name is Tom McKee, and I am running to represent House District 37A. I am a native of Medina, husband to my wonderful wife, Erin, and proud father to our 2.5-year-old son, Logan. Our family also includes our golden retriever, Aurora, and our French bulldog, Tinkerbell. As you can tell, we're Disney people. For nearly 6 years, I have had the honor of serving as mayor of Corcoran, where I'm now in my 3rd term. I have helped lead a rapidly growing community, one of the fastest growing in Minnesota, through major investments in public safety, roads, parks, broadband expansion, and our first municipal water system, all while protecting taxpayers and preserving local control. I have also served twice as the president of the Northwest Hennepin League of Municipalities, have served 6 years as president of the Corcoran EDA, and over a year and a half as the Met Council Land Use Advisory Committee District 1 representative. Professionally, I help lead our family construction business as a project manager and director of safety. I have a business degree from Wake Forest University and a law degree from the University of Wisconsin-Madison. I am running because Minnesota needs practical, accountable, leadership focused on the basics, making life more affordable, keeping communities safe, delivering excellent schools, investing in infrastructure, and creating a more competitive environment for businesses and workers. Taxpayers also deserve confidence that their money is protected. Recent state audits continue to identify serious oversight failures. While more than $500 million has been committed to renovating and expanding the state office building, and billions more have been lost to fraud, waste, and abuse, Our government must set priorities, prevent the fraud, waste, and abuse, and be accountable for every dollar it spends. I am Tom McKee, and I look forward to tonight's discussion, to earning your trust, and to hopefully earning your vote on or before November 3rd. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Smith and then Candidate Bonner. Candidate Smith?
Good evening. Thank you to the League, and thank you all for being here. I'm Darcy Smith. I'm running for House in 37A. If there's one thing you should know about me, it's that I'm average. Because like the average Minnesotan, I don't have a trust fund. My family didn't have a successful business or a foundation to hand over to me. Like the average Minnesotan, I've pored over bills, wondering how I'm going to make ends meet, if I'll ever get to retire, and if I'll have anything left to hand down. Here we are in one of the wealthiest communities, in one of the wealthiest states, in the wealthiest country in the history of the world, yet we still have neighbors struggling to put food on the table. We have a healthcare company in our backyard that pocketed over $12 billion last year, while working folks have to choose between groceries or insulin. By the way, that same company paid less than 20% in taxes last year. I'd be curious to know how that compares to families in this room. Like the average Minnesotan, the current system feels like it's forgotten me. Yet our Constitution begins, "We the people." But sometimes we forget about the people. We can't promise to lower taxes without explaining how we're going to protect the services that so many families depend on, like Medicaid or public education. We can't pass policy without considering how it impacts our people and our local businesses. At some point, we lost the true meaning of by the people, for the people. I'm Darcy Smith. Come November, I'm going to put the people back into politics. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Bonner?
Thank you to the League of Women Voters and to all of you for being here tonight. I am State Representative Kristen Bonner, proudly serving Maple Grove for the past 8 years. I'm the daughter of a nurse and a mechanical engineer, and I'm an IT consultant and business owner, project manager, and team leader in IT for over 30 years. Working collaboratively to get the job done, on time, on budget, and most of all, achieving our goals together. I'm known as a champion for accessible and affordable healthcare and prescription drugs, including nation-leading bills on things like cybersecurity, social media for kids, banning notification software that harms children, and of course, one of the largest things to come out of this last session, the bipartisan bill on the Homeowners' Bill of Rights to protect consumers. I am a fierce champion for women, children, and families. I'm the vice chair for state government, as well as the chair of the Legislative Commission on Cybersecurity, where I'm laser focused on AI, cybersecurity, data privacy, and IT modernization. At the Capitol, I am an advocate for my community, working for both parties and getting the job done for you. And I have the track record to prove it. I'd also like to say that I want to thank all of those out in the community who have been extremely supportive over the last year. As you know, political violence touched my own family, and I am very grateful for the support of my neighbors and my community during that time. But most importantly, it's time for us to work together to get things done. I'm Kristen Bonner. I put my community first, and I hope to have your vote in November.
Thank you. Candidate Dorr.
Good evening, and thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting tonight's forum. I'd like to thank each of you for taking time to be here tonight too as well. An informed and engaged community is the foundation of a strong democracy. My name is Luke Dorr, and I'm running to serve as your next state representative in 37B. My wife, our 9-year-old son, and I have probably called Maple Grove home for the last 10 years. Like so many families, we have chosen this community because of its outstanding schools, safe neighborhoods, exceptional quality of life. We want to make sure that Maple Grove remains the kind of community for future generations. Professionally, I've spent my career helping businesses, schools, and organizations solve problems and create partnerships. I've worked in educational technology, training and development, and marketing. Those experiences have taught me the importance of listening first, building strong relationships, and finding practical solutions that deliver results. Throughout my career, I've worked with businesses, leaders, and community leaders to solve those problems. I've dedicated my time to serve our community as chair of the local BPOU, have volunteered on local campaigns, school board races, and organizations that support education and workforce development. Public service has always been about giving back, and that is the reason I'm running. Across Maple Grove, families are feeling pressure of rising costs. Parents want confidence in their children's education. Seniors want to know if they can afford to stay in the community they love. Taxpayers expect the hard-earned dollar to be spent wisely and transparently. I believe we can do better. I'll fight for responsible budgeting, greater government accountability, stronger public safety, and policies that help Maple Grove families and small businesses. My focus isn't on political theater, it's on practical solutions that improve everyday life for the people of Maple Grove. This campaign is about the future. It's about leaving Minnesota stronger than today for our children, grandchildren, and the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to all our candidates for their opening statements. We will now move into the question portion of our forum. We hope that most, if not all, of tonight's questions will be those submitted by the audience, either in advance by email or on note cards here tonight. Our first question is going to go to candidate McKee and then candidate Bonner. We're going to start with the environment and data centers. What role does the legislature have to help communities protect their natural resources when approached by businesses wanting access to these resources for mining projects or for operating data centers? Candidate McKee?
Could you repeat the first part of that question? I'm sorry.
Sure, no problem. And by the way, if you need me to repeat the question at any time, you can just ask me. What role does the legislature have to help communities protect their natural resources when approached by businesses wanting access to these resources for mining projects or for operating data centers?
Well, I think there's certainly a role for the legislature, and that's one that needs to be figured out as it's a relatively new issue that we're seeing in the news and come up in communities more and more. There really hasn't been much time, a discussion in session on maybe creating some framework around how those type of projects get placed and how and where we want them and works with the community. But there's also a local aspect to that. I'm a big believer in local control, and so I think it's really a hybrid approach of local government and other layers of government, county government, and the legislature that need to work together by setting some guidelines and determining exactly how we want those type of projects and where we want them.
Thank you. Candidate Bonner and then candidate Dorr. Candidate Bonner?
Thank you for that question. You know, every Minnesotan wants to have clean air to breathe, clean water to drink. We want to have pristine waters for the next generation to come. And I think here in Minnesota, we are in a unique position as well because we're the home of the headwaters, right? Our rivers, our streams, our lakes, they are a critical part of what it means to be a Minnesotan. As a technologist, I understand data centers. I understand the need for them. I understand the need for other industries. But I think what's important is to look at how we balance those two equations. We can absolutely innovate and bring new jobs, new facilities, and new industries into the state, but we should also be mindful of how we balance that with the needs of the environment and making sure that we invest in our shared values, and that we leave what we have behind as pristine as we found it.
Thank you. Candidate Dorr and then candidate Janigo.
That is a great question, and similar to Tom McKee, being able to create or have conversations within the legislature is very important. You could spend months and months on this debating it. It may not even be solved in the next session, for example. But similar to that aspect of having local control for cities to evaluate the proposals specifically would be great. And then just finally, being conscientious of the environment as well as what it does on the effects of the different cities is paramount.
Thank you. Candidate Janigo and then candidate Smith. Candidate Janigo.
So in my experience as a city council member, I know that a city's role is to ensure the health, safety, and welfare of the community. And if this is met, the project is usually approved, and if not, it must hold up to legal scrutiny. So there are limits to rejecting certain projects, and they're looking, as local officials, they're looking at the requirements of the project and not necessarily the content. I will say that talking about mining or data centers, those are two very different things, but the state's role is for permitting. And I will say that this city is built on former gravel mines with some active mining still going on. I do very much have a concern for the boundary waters and make sure we keep that pristine in our state for generations to come. So I think the permitting process will be key there. Regarding data centers, I think the state can do a lot with requiring data centers to have closed-loop water systems, getting rid of non-disclosure agreements, and not giving them tax breaks so that they can survive on their own here versus draining money from the taxpayers. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Smith.
If you don't know this about me, I am not a lifelong Minnesotan. I moved here in 2017 after relocating several times across several different states for my previous job. And when I got here, I said, this is it. I'm not moving again. I love this state. I love our waters and I love our parks. And it is something that we definitely have to protect. But as technology changes and as we move forward, we have to be able to innovate, right? We need data centers to support growing technology, and we need precious minerals in order to create some of our, electric cars and things like that, right? So we have to find a way to thread that needle to make sure that we are doing it in a responsible way. Before we grant a permit, we need to make sure that they are doing closed-loop water systems where you reduce the evaporation and reuse the water. We need to make sure that we are not allowing copper sulfide mining to pollute our waters, and we're protecting our precious boundary waters for years to come. Thank you.
Thank you. We're on to question 2, and we're going to start out with candidate Janigo and then candidate Smith. It's a big one. Fraud. Minnesota is having to face a significant problem regarding fraud and abuse of government funds. Has the legislature taken adequate steps to correct the problems, and what additional efforts, if any, do you recommend? Candidate Janigo.
Thank you. I am very happy that the state has passed a bill for the Office of the Inspector General with law enforcement capabilities. I think that's going to be key going forward. I do think there's a lot more that can be done. So my day job, I actually audit and oversee government programs for a local government entity. And my opinion is that certain state agencies for high-risk programs need to mandate in-person site visits. In the past, some virtual visits were allowed, and it's my opinion that you can't catch everything that needs to be caught in that manner. You have to show up on site, and you have to see how the operations are going in person. I also think that we should ban public officials who have been convicted of fraud to keep them from ever running for office again. There are many other things that we can do, like whistleblower protections, and we do need to speed up the punishment of fraudsters so that we stop the fraud from occurring, stop the bleeding, and hold people accountable and move forward.
Thank you. Candidate Smith and then candidate Dorr.
I was on. 1 penny of a taxpayer's dollar going to fraud is unacceptable. In Minnesota, we caught it first, and we're seeing this grow across the country. What I will say is that once we caught it, we probably didn't move fast enough. But I am proud to say that we have guardrails in place now by starting with the Inspector General. While I'm a little bit ashamed that the previous chair of the Fraud Committee did absolutely nothing on fraud, I look forward to working with the legislature on creating more guardrails and more policies that catch fraudsters, in addition to the 80-plus people that have already been found guilty or pled guilty. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Dorr and then candidate McKee.
Fraud is a huge issue, and every time that I go to a door, I hear about this issue is within the top couple issues within voters in Maple Grove. And, as mentioned, the Office of Inspector General is a really good first step. When you look at it, 9 upwards of $9 billion worth of our own money have been just gone up and evaporated. And so we really do need to continue to support the Office of Inspector General as it continues through its phases. We also need to really look at the different programs that are getting, funded. Specifically, there's going to be sadly a lot of good people and good organizations that might get scrutinized, but it is needed to prevent this from happening in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate McKee and then Candidate Bonner.
Yeah, so it's a absolutely massive issue. The $9 billion that was referenced earlier, that's not just a number that came out of nowhere. That's the number that came from U.S. Attorney Joe Thompson. And I think an important quote to keep in mind from him was, "The magnitude of this fraud cannot be overstated. What we see in Minnesota is not a handful of bad actors committing crimes. It's a staggering industrial scale fraud." I think that we started to make some corrections towards that in the last year with the fraud committee. I would say that I am frustrated by the amount of the attempts to block every bill that would try to actually have some teeth to it to stop fraud and fight fraud by the minority party. I'd encourage you to go watch the hearings online on YouTube. They're incredibly frustrating, especially towards the end. There's a lot of work yet to be done to continue that work and really to get teeth into some of these bills to stop fraud.
Thank you. Candidate Bonner.
Thank you for that. It is not enough to talk about fraud. It's not enough to hold committees where we point fingers and we throw around blame. We have to actually do something about it. We have to actually act on it. And, we can throw out all kinds of numbers and whether they're accurate or they're not accurate. But lip service isn't important, right? I'm not a drama kind of person. This is really not about nonsense. This is about getting it right. You can listen to all of the debates you want, but this last year, we wanted to make sure that in Minnesota, when we say we're going to tackle fraud, we mean it. Because every dollar that does not go to the people it's intended means people that did not get services that they absolutely needed. Fraud is absolutely wrong. But that's why OIG addressed accountability. But my bill, which addresses whistleblower protections, permanent payment withholds, as well as better communication within agencies to collect information on people who actually have committed fraud.
Thank you. Our next question, we're going to start out with Candidate Bonner, and then we'll go to Candidate Dorr. As a member of the legislature, what measures, if any, would you support to reinforce or ensure voter confidence in our elections? Candidate Bonner?
Oh, fun. I love this one. So I will say to you, I have served on the Elections Committee for almost my entire career at the legislature, and I'm quite passionate on this particular topic. I am the author of the bill for automatic voter registration. But one of the fun things about that is that you learn so much about the checks and balances in the state of Minnesota. The amount of levels that go back and forth in the audits to prove that people are who they say they are, they live where they say they live, and they are, in fact, an eligible voter is astounding in the state of Minnesota. There is a reason that Minnesota continues to be the bright shining star and be #1 in the entire nation for voter registration. And I think we can continue on that trend to make sure that every single piece is in place to make sure that people feel that they have confident, free, and fair elections.
Thank you. Candidate Dorr, and then Candidate Janigo. Candidate Dorr?
Yes, thank you for that question. Voting is one of the utmost important things any one person can do in a democracy. And so to be able to have a free and fair election is extremely important. And in terms of voting, we need to look at, there's been cases across the country where, voting has not been seen on the up and up. And so we do need to look at how our processes are when we do ensure the elections. Maybe it means maybe even going to like a same-day registration or same-day election for voting specifically. So I don't have all the answers right now, but I do know that it is the paramount democracy that we are founded on. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Janigo, and then Candidate Smith.
The right to vote is fundamental, and Minnesota must continue to make sure elections are secure, accessible, transparent, and worthy of public confidence. Every eligible voter should have a meaningful opportunity to participate, whether voting early by mail or on election day. And with that, election officials need consistent statewide guidance, adequate funding, and strong training so that every ballot is handled properly. I support allowing local communities to choose ranked choice voting of their own elections, provided any change includes clear procedures and substantial voter education. Trust in democracy also depends on how we run government in between elections. It's not just on election day. And as a city council member, I'm someone who is experienced in oversight of publicly funded programs. I support open meetings, accessible public records, independent audits, transparent redistricting, and clearer disclosure of public spending. All these things taken together, I think, will help the public keep faith in their election processes.
Thank you. Candidate Smith and then Candidate McKee. Candidate Smith?
Thank you. Look, voting is one of the most precious rights and duties that we have as Americans. It is a guaranteed right by our Constitution that it is to be free, meaning it is not supposed to cost you a penny, and fair. Nobody should feel unsafe to vote because of their income, their zip code, or their housing status. We need to make sure it's easy and accessible for all. Now, that being said, in some of these local elections, they can get really close, right? In 2024, the presidential election in 37A was separated by only 121 votes. So we do want to make sure they're accurate, but I have full faith in the systems that we have in place in Minnesota. In fact, just recently, they caught some fraudster voters. I think it was 2 or 3 of them. I don't know the exact one without looking it up. But it was flagged by our incredible system, and they were caught and sentenced. So I have faith in it. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate McKee.
Yeah, I would like to echo pretty much what everyone said about the importance of voting to our democracy, and it's one of the key rights and obligations or duties that we have as Americans. It's critically important to make sure that there's confidence in elections. Minnesota has been better than some other states in terms of the process and in terms of, distrust in the process, but there's always room for improvement. I think there's a number of issues that have been discussed ad nauseum in legislatures across the country and in Minnesota. It will likely continue to be a very often had discussion, and hopefully we can, over time, fine-tune some things to get to where most people are, having the most trust in the process as possible.
Thank you. With our next question, we're going to start with Candidate Smith and then Candidate Dorr. Candidate Smith, gun violence is the topic. Many are concerned with increased gun violence in our communities. What legislation, if any, would you support to meet the need for safe communities? Candidate Smith.
Thank you. Gun violence is a huge issue, and keeping our kids safe is top of mind for, I think, most parents in today's world, especially with what happened with Annunciation recently and the political violence that we've seen happening in our communities. I'm not going to say that we shouldn't have guns. I have guns in my house, but I store them safely and I use them responsibly. We practice safety, and I would support not allowing people to have guns that shouldn't or don't store them safely. So I guess to bring that back around, I do support common sense gun legislation that keeps our kids safe. There was a bill that was refused to be heard that I think everyone supported, and the parents stood up and our legislature stood up, but it was not heard. It should have been heard. It should have been passed because it was common sense to keep our kids safe, and I do support that. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Dorr and then Candidate Janigo. Candidate Dorr?
Yeah, public safety isn't a partisan. It's essential. Safer neighborhoods are the foundation of a strong community specifically. So, Maple Grove has a world-class police force led by Chief Warner. And one stat is 93% of gun crimes are committed by guns that are illegally obtained. So I think when it comes down to it, you want to focus on 2 things. Number one, you want to focus on the mental health aspect of it. And then secondly, we do need people that are in violation, criminals. We do need to see harsher crimes and penalties for those people. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Janigo and then candidate Bonner. Candidate Janigo.
I'm a gun owner myself, and as a woman and former service member, having the means to protect myself and my family is important. But at the same time, I support practical constitutional measures to reduce gun violence, including comprehensive background checks, responsible firearm storage, and preventing individuals who present a demonstrated danger to themselves or others from accessing firearms with due process protections. I do have some concerns with how the debate has unfolded at the state level. I think politicians shouldn't conflate mental health with gun violence. Such a large percentage of the population has a mental health diagnosis these days, but firearm use is closely associated with suicide, especially among veterans, but it is rarely the primary factor of violence against others. I'm also concerned that lawmakers don't understand the firearms they're trying to regulate, and I'd like to see all the members of the legislature go to a range and do some target practice with these firearms. We need to have a serious discussion across party lines that is not all no and not all yes to firearm regulations, and I hope we can do that in 27.
Candidate Bonner and then candidate McKee. Candidate Bonner.
Thank you. You know, I think what's important about this particular issue is that we absolutely can balance Second Amendment rights with common sense reforms. There is no question in my mind that we can do that. I think it's no secret in this room that I was impacted by violence at my own home and at my own door by an assassin that came from my family. In the last year, we lost Speaker Hortman and her husband, Mark. We had violence against a senator and his wife. We had the Annunciation shootings, which just ripped open every single wound over again. And those parents came to us asking for common sense things. They talked about things like safe storage. They talked about extending extreme risk protection orders. But at the end of the day, what we can do is absolutely, we can talk about putting kids before guns.
Thank you. Candidate McKee.
Yeah, public safety is obviously a huge priority to me and I think to all of us up here. In Corcoran, we've been one of the safest cities, one of the top 5 safest cities in Minnesota each of the years I've been mayor. Having said that, I think the issue comes down to it is a combination of mental health and gun issues, but what I struggle with is seeing the quote-unquote reasonable gun legislation that's been attempted to be passed, not actually being held up to any legal standard that would hold water. I'd encourage people, I know we're on a short time scale here, to take a look at a couple Supreme Court cases: Heller, McDonald v. Chicago, Catano v. Massachusetts, and New York State Rifle and Pistol Association v. Bruin for a couple major issues on what some of the problems.
Moving on to the next question, we're going to start with candidate Bonner and then candidate McKee. If elected, what do you envision as a tax relief strategy the legislation can implement? Candidate Bonner.
Thank you. You know, I think we are in an interesting place in which we have a lot of demands on our state budget. We know that there is a slight structural deficit, although we do have, I believe, $3 million or so on the bottom line right now. We're looking at potential federal concerns where the federal government is divesting and pushing that responsibility to the states, so balancing our budget is going to be really difficult. We are going to have to look at creative ways in order to solve those challenges. But we also have to be thoughtful about the fact that affordability is reigning supreme for most families, right? Making sure that they have food on their tables and a roof over their head is important. We have talked about some ideas like a digital tax. That is one of the frontiers that has not yet been explored. But certainly we have to make sure that we are taxing structures where it makes sense to make up the deficit.
Thank you. Candidate McKee and then candidate Smith. Candidate McKee?
Yeah, I think I would, first and foremost, we saw a little bit of a framework starting in the last session led by Republicans in the House and Senate to come up with a framework for some property tax relief for a certain amount of people and a certain dollar amount. I'd like to see that expanded to a multi-year, longer-term use and broaden who it's affecting and how much relief it's giving. Additionally, I think that the issue in Minnesota is not so much with the taxes, we have a spending problem. We need to holistically look at what we are spending on our state dollars on, our taxpayer dollars on, because we are way out of line. Besides the $9 billion that's gone to fraud and the $750 million going to the new state office building, overall, we are just spending way too much money, and we have to change that to be able to make life affordable for Minnesotans again.
Thank you. Candidate Smith and then Candidate Dorr. Candidate Smith?
Thank you. Look, in Minnesota, our effective tax rate is less than that of Texas. I think that what we're feeling, and as I'm talking to people at the doors, is that they're not getting the value in the taxes that they're paying, and that their taxes feel unfair. When I look at some of these small towns like Loretto, like Corcoran, where their taxes have gone up 30% this year, the families are hurting in these small towns, and we have to do something to help them. But we do need to be responsible. We can't just cut taxes at the cost of things that families need, like Medicaid and public education. And so I think we do need to be smart by taking away potentially the tax breaks for stadium suites, right? We can close some of these loopholes. If you go to a sports stadium game and buy a suite, you pay zero taxes on that. We can close these loopholes and lighten the load for actual working Minnesotans. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Dorr and then Candidate Janigo. Candidate Dorr.
Yes, this is really near and dear. Maple Grove families really are hurting right now. Whether it's the, property taxes, as Tom McKee had mentioned, whether it's the sales tax, gasoline tax, all those different things add up specifically. So it doesn't affect just families, it's all residents here in Maple Grove. And also so one of the biggest things that I would go back to is the license tabs specifically. If you've paid them in the last few months, you can see how outrageous that has gotten for you. So we really do need to look at what kind of taxes get them, the license tab, property taxes reduced, provide some affordability, but also to look at the budget and spending specifically. We do need to look at every dollar we're spending. Thank you.
Candidate Janigo.
Minnesotans expect state government to provide essential services while using tax dollars responsibly. Families are already struggling with housing, groceries, healthcare, childcare, transportation, and education costs. Before we ask them to pay more, state leaders have to demonstrate that existing resources are being managed effectively. My priorities would include education, public safety, healthcare, infrastructure, veterans, seniors, and people with disabilities, and also programs that help families achieve stability and self-reliance. Tax policy should be fair, understandable, and sustainable, and state budgets should include responsible reserves and long-term planning. Good government means protecting taxpayers while preserving the public services Minnesotans depend on.
Thank you. For our next question, we're going to start with Candidate Janigo and then Candidate Bonner. Osseo Area Schools is one of the largest employers in the district. What policies will you support to ensure that our schools are fully funded and we continue to maintain a funding for fully staffed schools and support functions? Candidate Janigo.
Sure. So I'm the daughter of 2 teachers, a graduate of public schools and land-grant universities, and a former higher ed department chair. I know that strong schools are the foundation of strong communities and a strong economy. Every Minnesota student deserves a safe, supportive, and high-quality education regardless of their zip code, income, disability, or background. And the state must provide stable and equitable funding, support special education, expand school-based mental health services, and ensure teachers and school staff have the resources they need. Education should also prepare students for many different paths after graduation. I support stronger career and technical education, apprenticeships, trade programs, 2-year colleges, 4-year universities, military service, and direct entry into the workforce. So students should graduate with these skills, civic knowledge, and the opportunity to build meaningful lives. Thank you.
Next is candidate Bonner and then candidate McKee. Candidate Bonner.
Thank you for that. You know, I think we know that every child deserves a quality education, and it is the top of mind for every parent out there. Quite frankly, we need to keep talking about how we fully fund our educational system and also how we provide stable funding across that. In the 23-24 session, we saw some of the largest gains in education funding that lagged for decades. But at the end of the day, I think the key areas where we need to invest most are things around taking care of our teachers, making sure that we have sufficient support staff, making sure that we honor our special education obligations and so forth. Those are really critical areas that I think we'll see going forward, as well as making sure we take care of our staff over the summer. Quite frankly, teachers continue to try to do more with less, but we need to make sure that we take care of them so they can take care of our students.
Thank you. Candidate McKee and then candidate Smith. Candidate McKee.
Obviously, good schools are important to everyone, and it's a high priority to myself. But I think it's interesting when we know that Democrats in 2023 said that they had fully funded education by increasing the state public school spending by approximately $2.26 billion for the 24-25 biennium. Despite that historic spending increase, school districts continued facing budget shortfalls and staffing reductions and program cuts. A lot of that is due to about 65 new mandates in the 2023 education bill. We're giving schools money, but we're not giving them money in the way that they need or as that is useful to them. And I've heard this from every superintendent or school board member that I know that I've talked to as mayor in our district. Same type of issues where they're not able to spend the money in the way that would be useful to them.
Thank you. Candidate Smith and then candidate Dorr. Candidate Smith.
Thank you. Education is the bedrock of a healthy society. Every dollar that we invest in education comes back to us sevenfold in our economy. It is one of the best uses of our financial resources that we can do. Your education should not depend on your zip code. It should not depend on your housing status, and it should not depend on your family's history. Everyone deserves access to it. And the staff, the educators, are some of the lowest paid, most important and lowest paid professionals in our state, probably. I got to meet with actually a principal of one of our local schools and a couple of the teachers, and I really believe you have to meet with them to understand what they're going through. And they shared with me that some of their most important programs were being cut in half due to budget cuts. And that is simply unacceptable when we know that we get it back sevenfold. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Dorr.
Education in my past life has been extremely important. Working with administrators, teachers, and even students on credit recovery programs so they can graduate high school, to helping students come back up to grade level in reading. And that is a big thing, is talking about where our academics are right now specifically. More than half our third graders can't even read at proficiency level, which is unacceptable when our state has graduating about 85% of students, which is a record high, but our students aren't prepared for college or even a workforce specifically. So what kind of funding would I support? Funding that is not a one-size-fits-all. Ely, Minnesota is not the same as Osseo area. Also, we need to be funding public school safety specifically. Those are big initiatives to keep our students safe. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next question, we're going to start with candidate Smith and then candidate Dorr. Do you support legislation for adding an equal rights amendment to the Minnesota Constitution? Please explain why or why not. Candidate Smith.
Yeah, thank you. Absolutely, I support adding an equal rights amendment. The fact that the Equal Rights Amendment has been actually passed by enough states to ratify it, but it hasn't been ratified yet, is a huge disappointment to me as a woman. And it should be a disappointment to all Americans because we're all supposed to be created equal, and all it does is guarantee equal rights for all. It's not asking for more rights or better rights. It's just saying, hey, we all deserve the same rights that are endowed upon us. To me, this is just a simple question. It's just logical that we should all be equal.
Thank you. Candidate Dorr and then candidate Janigo. Candidate Dorr.
It's my understanding that House File 173 and SF 37 puts the equal rights on the ballot this November. So our voters will have a choice at that.
Thank you. Candidate Janigo and then candidate Bonner.
Yes, I support the Equal Rights Amendment, reproductive freedom, and protections for LGBTQ plus Minnesotans in schools, workplaces, housing, healthcare, and public life. My military service taught me that patriotism means defending the constitutional rights of all Americans. I will oppose discrimination and work to ensure every Minnesotan is treated with dignity and given a genuine opportunity to succeed.
Thank you. Candidate Bonner and then candidate McKee. Candidate Bonner.
Thank you for that. I think it's no surprise in this room that I have long been a champion for the Equal Rights Amendment and specifically for equality under the law. Our rights should never be left up to the roll of a dice, and currently that is where they stand. Supreme Court Justice Anton Scalia said specifically that while the law does not encourage discrimination, it also does not prohibit it. And that says all that we need to know. Enough states have passed this law to make it the law of the land, but it's time to do that on the state level and make sure that every citizen in this state has an equal opportunity. We're not asking for a leg up, we're asking for an equal opportunity to do work or to work hard and to get where we need to be. And for that reason, I strongly support the Equal Rights Amendment.
Thank you. Candidate McKee.
I as well don't have too much to say on this. It's my understanding, as candidate Dorr said, that it will be on the ballot in November and up to the residents and citizens of Minnesota to tell us whether or not it should be there. So I'll leave it up. I'll leave it up to that.
Thank you. For our next question, we are going to start with candidate McKee and then go to candidate Bonner. What changes, if any, to the structure of the Met Council would you support? Candidate McKee.
Oh, perfect. I wish I had more than a minute. Quite a few. I think the Met Council has grown far beyond what its original mandate was, which was to control and manage our sewer system in the metropolitan area. Since then, it has grown to be, I think, the second largest unelected group of its type, a second only to one similar in Oregon, I believe. I would start at reforming it in terms of how it's appointed. It should not be the governor's appointment for all, however many seats, 17 or whatever it is. I would look to staggering terms, maybe having a couple governor appointments, some by a joint group of the legislature appointed, and then some selected from local elected officials and some at-large elections, all staggered terms, to mix up and have actual accountability of the Met Council. Then I would work at cutting back what their responsibilities are and what they're in charge of.
Thank you.
Sewer.
Candidate Bonner and then candidate Dorr. Candidate Bonner.
First, I want to say I think that the Met Council has been both a blessing and one of the most challenging jobs probably in our state. They are tasked with trying to develop a strategic plan for the entirety of the county and how we manage strategic infrastructure. No small task when you have a very diverse county such as ours, making sure that people get where they are so that they can get to work, that they can get to school, that they can get to all of those places. And certainly we can talk about things like staggered terms and we can talk about other issues, but at the end of the day, I do think that we will have to do more evaluation on additional changes to the Met Council.
Thank you. Candidate Dorr and then candidate Janigo.
Yeah, regarding the Met Council, gosh, they have such a tough thing, but, similar to candidate McKee, again, being governor appointed makes that, are they really working for in having our best interest? So I would say, staggering terms, having something to where they're not all governor appointed would be something that I would advocate for. Thank you.
Candidate Janigo and then candidate Smith. Candidate Janigo.
Yes, I would also support looking at having some, if not all, Met Council members be elected. As a local city council member, of course, I had to run for my seat to be able to represent my city and make decisions that impacted my community. This district does include several fast-growing suburbs and communities with rural characteristics, and we've seen that one-size-fit-all approaches don't really work across the board. And then you add into the mix greater Minnesota suburban communities and the urban center, and it doesn't fit. So I do support regional bodies such as the Met Council remaining transparent, accountable, and responsive to the affected communities. And strong state and local partnerships will allow the communities to grow responsibly, providing essential services and avoid placing excessive pressure on local property taxpayers. So I do think that we need to work on those aspects to make the Met Council successful in guiding growth needs across the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Smith.
Thank you. The Met Council, like so many public offices, is comprised of public servants, people who have studied, who have done the work, and who wake up every day intending to make the systems and our infrastructure better. Do I support reforming it? Only if necessary. I think that they need more support. They need to have legislatures that are going to meet with them and understand the challenges that they face and understand the challenges that our communities face so that we can work together to solve the problems. I do support further accountability. I wouldn't be opposed to making it an elected position or doing a mixture of such, but I also want to make sure that we're putting engineers and responsible parties in charge of our infrastructure.
Thank you. Now we're going to do a lightning round question. So with this lightning round question, it is a one-word answer, or a couple words if it's a two-word answer, and that's it. If elected, what would be your number one priority that you would work on? And we're going to start with candidate Janigo, and then candidate Smith. Candidate Janigo.
Local infrastructure.
Candidate Smith.
Pre-K childcare.
Candidate Dorr.
Property taxes.
Candidate McKee.
Fraud and affordability.
And then candidate Bonner.
AI and technology.
Great. Now that's just kind of a little encouragement to you to reach out to each of these candidates and ask them a little bit more about their number one priority and their platform on it. Okay. Next question is one that's a hot topic. Post ICE impact in the state. Has the legislature taken adequate steps to help businesses and residents recover from the financial effects caused by ICE this last winter? What additional efforts, if any, would you support? And we're going to start with candidate Dorr, and then candidate Bonner. Candidate Dorr?
So ICE is a federal immigration, and, according to even our own governor, this shouldn't be determined by states. So I'm going to leave it at that.
Thank you. And I meant to mention that this is our last question. So if you want to add anything more? No? No. Okay. Candidate Bonner and then candidate Janigo.
I think what we saw in Minnesota was unprecedented. We saw armed men coming into our communities and wrestling United States citizens to the ground. We saw intimidation of our immigrant communities, people who contribute to the fabric of what Minnesota is and what it stands for every day. And I think that's unconscionable. Did we do enough? No, we didn't. When we talk about things like ensuring the personal freedoms and protections of our citizens and making sure that they are free to follow the Constitution, that our elected, or our federal agents should be following the Constitution, we need to do more to ensure that that happens in a timely fashion. We also need to do more to support the businesses of Minnesota, and unfortunately, those efforts this year were blocked, but we'll continue to work on it.
Thank you. Candidate Janigo and then Candidate Smith. Candidate Janigo.
I do think we need to study any lingering impacts on our businesses. We need to look at protecting our schools and sensitive spaces and ensuring that due process is followed in our communities going forward, and hold any agents accountable who may have broken the law while they were here in Minnesota.
Thank you. Candidate Smith and then Candidate McKee. Candidate Smith.
Thank you. I'm going to start by saying that I don't think anybody wants to let criminals go free. We've been doing a good job of that all along in Minnesota. And what we saw happen the first part of our year caused lasting damage to our communities. Families were separated. Lives were lost. People who were here legally were taken out of work for weeks, sometimes months. Some of them still haven't made it home to provide for their families. And I need to remind you, here legally, and had not broken any laws. So have we done enough? I agree that no, we have not. The impact has caused damage to our local businesses, our restaurants, to our grocery stores, to our schools. Attendance went down because people couldn't send their children to schools, which lost federal funding for our public education. Unacceptable, and no, we have not done enough.
Thank you. Candidate McKee.
First, I'd like to reiterate what Candidate Dorr said about it being a federal issue and not a state issue. It's a federal agency. We will have little to no interaction and impact with them. That being said, I do think that when the operation came in this past year, initially was not handled well. I think both the federal government and Minnesotans across the state on both sides of the aisle would agree with that. When Tom Homan was put in charge and met with the governor, things got on track real quick, and it was handled appropriately and how ICE should be operating to help secure our borders and our country, make sure people that are here illegally are accounted for and necessary deported, while not going through the streets and causing the kind of rampage that happened in the early days of the operation.
Thank you. We will now move on to closing statements. Each candidate will have 1 minute. The order for closing statements will be random. And we are going to start with Candidate Bonner and then Candidate McKee. Candidate Bonner.
Thank you. It has been a pleasure to be with you tonight. It has been an honor to serve as your state representative for the last 8 years. This work, working for each of you, has been both my passion and my privilege. I love my thriving Maple Grove community, and I love serving Minnesotans. Even when we have our differences, we find common ground. I believe in using common sense to build common ground for the common good. I am a top 10 bipartisan legislator in the House year after year, and I am proof that bipartisan work is in fact possible. I'm Kristen Bonner. I'm a tenacious advocate for my community, and I ask for your vote in November so that I can get back to work for you.
Thank you. Candidate McKee and then Candidate Dorr. Candidate McKee.
Thank you to the League of Women Voters for hosting tonight's forum, and thank you to everyone who joined us in person and online. I'd like to address one quick thing that was mentioned about Corcoran tonight that was not correct. We did not have a 30% tax increase last year. In fact, our tax rate is lower today than it was 10 years ago. You can check that out on our website. Anyway, throughout this campaign, I've heard a clear message from families across the district. They want leaders who will listen and work together and remain focused on delivering results on issues such as fraud, affordability, public safety, and more. That is the approach I have taken throughout nearly 6 years as mayor of Corcoran. I've worked closely with fellow mayors, council members, city staff, law enforcement, school district, residents, and local businesses to understand different perspectives and solve problems, and to move our community forward. I will bring that same practical and collaborative approach to the legislature. On the other hand, the DFL has continuously advocated for things such as increased car tab fees, fifth-tier income tax, unrealized gain tax, and much, much more out-of-control spending, while looking the other way on fraud and affordability.
Thank you very much. Candidate Dorr and then Candidate Smith. Candidate Dorr.
Thank you again to the League of Women Voters for hosting tonight's forum. To my fellow candidates, thank you for being here as well. And most importantly, thank you to the people in the audience and those watching at home. Our democracy is the strongest when people participate. Tonight, you've heard about different ideas for our future within our district. As you make your decision, I hope you consider not only what I believe, but how I would serve. I believe government should be accountable to the people it serves. Families deserve to keep more of the money they earn. Every child deserves the opportunity to receive a quality education. Our law enforcement officers deserve our support, and every family deserves to feel safe in our community. Most importantly, your tax dollars should be treated with the same care and responsibility that you use to manage your own book. These aren't Republican or Democratic values, they're Minnesota values. I would be honored to earn your vote for the District 37B. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Smith and then Candidate Janico. Candidate Smith.
I want to say thank you again to the League of Women Voters and a massive thank you to all of you for showing up tonight. Democracy dies in darkness, and I'm so encouraged to see all of you show up to keep the lights on. I want to say that as a granddaughter of a union leader, the daughter of a veteran and a secretary, I know firsthand the struggles of the working class. And I've been honored to meet with folks at their doors and hear their struggles too. And my plan is to represent people again by hearing them. A few months ago, I had the honor of attending a Maple Plain Snowmads meeting, and I got to hear how they volunteer their time, they groom the trails, they build relationships and maintain them with the landowners so that they can make it all a win-win. When problems arise, they work together as a community. And that's the Minnesota that I believe in. When I represent you, I plan to meet you where you're at, hear your problems, and work collaboratively as your partner to solve them. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Janico.
I'm Christy Janigo, and I'm asking for your vote for state senate. I have the experience and will be immediately effective at the state capitol advocating for the interests of residents of District 37. It's time for our state lawmakers to work together with respect and civility. Our nation's survival depends on our ability to once more see each other as humans. While we may disagree, we still have a duty to one another as fellow Americans. I brought these values with me to all my work. That's why my coalition supporting my campaign is large and spans across the political spectrum. If I have the honor of representing you in the Minnesota Senate, I will work hard on issues affecting you the most. I have heard countless times while canvassing how hard it is to afford the basics in life: housing, healthcare, childcare, and education. I will work with you on policies and programs that bring relief to your pocketbooks and help you pursue your dreams. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you all, candidates. Again, we don't have time to get to every single question. So if your question was not answered tonight, we encourage you to reach out to the candidates afterwards or on their websites to ask for some answers to the things that are important to you. I would like to remind everyone that the views expressed in this forum are those of the candidates and not those of the League of Women Voters. Sponsorship of this forum is not an endorsement of any candidate. The League of Women Voters, Brooklyn Park, Osseo, Maple Grove, and Lake Minnetonka, Plymouth area would like to thank you all for coming tonight and to our online audience for viewing. We would especially like to thank our candidates for being part of the democratic process and for running for office and for being willing to serve our community. The League researches issues important to our members and to the health of our communities. If you're interested in finding out more about what we do and how you can make a difference, please visit us at LWVMN.org. Membership is open to anyone 16 and older and to men also. You can find more information about the candidates and about voting at vote411.org or mnvotes.org. Links to all our candidate forums and additional voter information can be found on our Facebook page at facebook.com/LWVBPOMG. Again, thank you for coming, and remember to vote before or on November 3rd. Thank you. Also, the primaries are on. Vote for the primary. The primary day is August 11th, so you can start voting early now or get to the polls on August 11th. Thank you very much.